All right, now the composting has begun for 2025, and this is going to go into the garden in 2026. So I always start the previous year. Now, let me specify this method here is hot composting, where I use natural materials like grass clippings and dried leaves and pine wood shavings that I've used in raising my chickens or my turkeys. Now, let me just specify that this material also contains chicken droppings and lots of it, which is a nitrogen that adds to this recipe here and heats up this compost pile. So now I am going to check in to see where it's at. I did dump a couple layers of different materials and I layer this in. So what we got here is the browns, which is a carbon. We have the greens and the chicken droppings that adds nitrogen to this compost pile, which again is necessary for this to heat up. So let's just check and see where it's at right now and how much it has heated up so far. Now I come in every week and I turn these materials once a week and continue to layer in more materials. Now I do have materials readily available because I do have lots of leaves from the previous year also, and I just add some chicken droppings in there to heat it up. And as we cut the grass as the season go along, we just add all of these materials to this compost pile and allow it to break down. Now, if you've been looking at the compost thermometer, you'll see that the heat in there is probably about 60 degrees, and we do want it in that section of the thermometer that says hot. And so I'm going to give this a good turn right now. And it's important to turn this material when using the hot composting method. I mean, some people have different methods of composting. That's quite all right because they all work the same. The goal is to build the soil, to fertilize naturally, and to enhance your garden where you're growing. Now look at all the earthworms in here. And this is just from raking up these leaves. The rain has been falling, so they are really breaking down nicely. And so I'm going to incorporate them into my compost pile. And normally I make my compost pile with a measurement of approximately 4 feet high and 4 feet wide. Obviously it's going to break down and get smaller as the time go along and the materials in here starts to break down, but I do not ever go higher than that, or bigger than that I should say. I do make it smaller sometimes than that, probably just about a 3 by 3. And so this is the method I use when I'm composting using the hot composting method. Now there's leaves all over, as you can see, still from last year. This is just a burdock in the way. There it is. But I gather all these leaves here. There's just tons of leaves. And if I rake this all up, there's so much leaves in here that I am going to be adding over time to my compost pile, because like I said, it is necessary for this component to be added to the compost pile so it'll be successful. So you have your browns always, your greens, then your worms and your bugs that are going to emerge from the soil and start breaking all that material down. And there you have it, your moisture from the rain and your air from me turning this material every week, once a week. Of course, your microorganisms, like I mentioned earlier, things that you can't see with your bare eyes, these all work into this recipe and create the conditions for this to heat up and start breaking down, resulting in compost. And these are the steps that I use to do my hot composting. I'm just distracted by the seedlings that I'm looking at here, the squash seedlings all over, because I did feed some squash to the chickens during the winter months, fall and winter months, and dumped it in the compost pile. And there you have it. I am definitely going to be transplanting these. I'm not sure what varieties they are, but easy way of getting your seedlings started. And these are a bunch of tomato seedlings, which I also feed tomatoes to the chickens sometimes. So if you don't want plants growing in your compost, you got to be mindful of what you're throwing in your compost pile. And this here is a peach tree that grew from seed that I am going to be digging up and transplanting in a spot that I wanted to grow in. It's the second of 2 that I discovered so far this season, but we are going to be checking on this compost pile and see how well it's heating up after the second day of turning it. And I just placed the compost thermometer probably about halfway up. I could have put it lower, but I just wanted to see what that level was. And we are actually in the green section, which means it's getting hotter. And that says that it's actively heating up. And I actually want it in the gray area here where it says hot. And this is how I check my compost pile to make sure that it's heating up properly and it's at the temperature where I want it to be, where the materials in there can break down adequately. So there you have it. It's on its way to getting hotter after incorporating those materials and layering them in. So as I go along, I am gonna turn it once a week, like I said, and I am gonna keep adding different layers of greens and browns to this compost pile, even when I clean the chicken coop out and the chicken run out, because we still have a lot of materials that we need to be adding to this compost pile, so it will break down and age and be ready for next year's garden season. This is all for now. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again on the next upload.